Greetings, everyone. I'm Jay from the Iowa Brewers Guild, and we have a collection of people, Ben, from, oh gosh, North Carolina, Texas, Arizona, Ohio, New York, Missouri, and Illinois here. I guess I can let them introduce themselves specifically, and then I'll introduce you. Yeah, how about that? Whoever's right there, you go next.
You're going to have to call them out, boss.
Oh, well, for me, that's Leah.
Hi, I'm Leah Arenas. I'm the Executive Director of the Asheville Brewers Alliance.
Jasmine.
Jasmine Bamlett, Events and Allied Member Management Direct. Yeah, thanks. I do events, which just not right now.
Caroline.
Caroline Wallace, Deputy Director of the Texas Craft Brewers Guild.
Kristen.
Hi, Kristen with the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. I'm the Business Development Manager.
Mary.
Mary McDonald, Director of the Ohio Craft Brewers Association.
I got Rob next.
Rob, Director, Arizona Craft Brewers Guild.
Paul.
Paul Leone, Executive Director, New York State Brewers Association.
I got Sherry next.
I'm Sherry Woldmuth with Missouri Craft Brewers Guild. I'm the Executive Director.
And finally, Danielle.
Danielle, I'm Executive Director of the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild. Yes, I have not touched my hair since I woke up this morning.
We haven't either. It's fine. I've known Ben for a number of years now. He's actually the guy that built, I've talked to a few people about the app that we use for our beer festival app, which we really, really like. So if you have appy kind of questions, you can ask those later or whatever. I told Ben he's not allowed to be a salesman today, but that's my main connection to him. Apart from the whole 1 million cups thing, we do beer stuff there in October. Once a year, we have a big panel discussion, and it's a lot of fun. So anyway, I guess Ben can probably talk about himself a little bit more, but that's how I know him. And the app has been very, very cool. He's like computer nerdy, talented video stuff and all those kinds of things. And we got to talking about how our initial virtual beer festival went. And of course he had like all this excellent feedback and suggestions. And I was saying we were looking at doing a Zoom kind of thing for our next one, but wasn't too sure how to go about it and which this, that, and the other. So anyway, like he's really good at it because of the wide swath of million cups people that he deals with. So he offered to give us a tutorial here. So hopefully this is useful to some or all of us. Go, Ben.
Fahrenheit. I appreciate the kind words. It's a pleasure to be here. As Jay mentioned, I'm with Flightbright, and originally, it's been about 5 years ago, we set out to create smart flights. I actually brought the Relic just for fun. This is an electronic beer flight paddle that has a color touchscreen that you can learn about each of the brews and share them throughout social media. And so we went down that path and ended up having to sideline that for now and pivoted. The story of how the Beer Festival app came online is super fun, and I'll tell it to those who care later. But anyway, we built that, and so the Beer Festival experience has been something we've really enjoyed collaborating with. And from like the virtual opportunity of connecting all of these beer lovers, I have a lot of experience connecting entrepreneurs in a remote way. And so we've been using these types of platforms a long time to have different types of conversations. And so as Jay and I were kind of talking about the cyber, the one that they launched originally, the one they have planned coming up, just kind of ping-ponging ideas, and it started to bubble into this like, well, maybe there's value that we can share with others. And so yesterday I was told we'd be meeting at 2, and I fired up some thought into a short slide deck and figured we could have a collaborative discussion around these virtual beer festivals and kind of ways of keeping everyone connected during this unique situation. So a lot of us have been to beer festivals for a long time, and I thought it would be good to highlight some of the things that we already know beer festivals provide, but specifically how we can tap into the fresh opportunities of these virtual environments. As you can see, I think there's value in maintaining the momentum of your fundraising efforts as an organization, and being able to elevate those vendors in such a challenging time, I think is, of course, kind of the energy, the positive awareness, but also allowing them to interact with the community like they would at a beer festival in a personal way. And it's almost interesting when you are in a virtual environment, some of the on-site activities. I think of the last one, Jay was popping around and having different brewers showcase kind of their brew houses and different setups. One of the most, I guess, the feedback from the attendees, they really liked seeing the hop farm and how things were running in that process. And so knowing that you have the ability to almost like teleport people into different environments can unlock some pretty cool experiences. Naturally, you're not getting the permits to close down the streets, you're not bringing in all the ice, you're not doing all the things that cost a lot of money. And so it is actually a much lower barrier of entry. And I think treating it like a normal beer festival is a pretty good overall approach. Less competing events, and naturally the opportunity of broadening the impact, knowing that no travel is required. And so just to keep things super high level, I figured I'd kind of outline a simple recipe for success. I'm interested to hear what elements people have used and what has really worked for you. But this is a couple of things that I thought would be at least a good place to start. Understanding that it's going to take a couple pieces. Think of this portfolio of technology that you're going to connect and use in different ways. And then, knowing that you have this foundation, making sure that, of course, you and your staff are involved and well aware of what the goals are and how you're going to implement, but also not being afraid to call on community members who we know love volunteering, and potentially getting them involved with this virtual beer festival experience. That can be moderating the different rooms, inviting folks. There's all sorts of different roles there. And making sure that the vendors also are clearly understand what you're trying to do, and maybe even considering some charitable contributions. I know that we had some cool success with that, people stepping up, wanting to support those who may have lost their jobs during this time. And so thinking about that angle that a lot of us have already implemented with the normal beer festival experiences. Selling tickets, promoting it like normal. I mean, you don't have to pay for printing, but really treating this like an event, and planning like you know how to do so well around it, I think is an important piece of the puzzle that sometimes can be overlooked. Part of the marketing efforts, and of course during the live experience, making sure that people understand how to work within it. Is it a social media thing where they're only being able to comment? Is it a hashtag where it's distant but somewhat connected conversation? Or is it everyone in one room and we need to make sure everyone knows how to be polite to keep things under control? And so clarifying those instructions, I think, is important. Lastly, it's super important to test your overall plan. Know that problems will arise and have some backup ideas in place. And being able to then, like you would a normal festival, grabbing screenshots, being able to highlight this experience to build momentum in case you ever want to do it again, or even just, that broadening of awareness can lead to cool things for your future live events. And so I thought it'd be fun to kind of replace each of those high-level items of, ideas of success with kind of a tasty example. So we'll kind of go through each line item again and explain how a setup might look if you were really to take this thing and go all in. And that's makes it sound scary. It's still very simple. But imagine the Zoom call as your venue. This is where people are coming together. This is where you're inviting folks to participate. You're selling a ticket, potentially unlocking a special link for them to access it on game day. Thinking about the value of some form to showcase the different beers, and allowing folks to interact with those beers. And then also being able to then showcase that experience on social media, knowing that that's only going to generate attention. And I believe you can sell tickets in real time by creating a FOMO effect for folks who might see the activity and want to participate more than just a comment on Facebook. I'll fly through this one. You know what it is, collecting the folks who want to get involved, knowing their role, and activating folks who want to help. And then I think the vendors, right? These are the folks that you work with closely, the folks who are, most important to support, getting creative in ways that can elevate their work, connecting them to the community that is their customers, is such a cool opportunity to do this in a different way without the limitation of proximity. And so thinking about how to really activate those vendors, and I would even add sponsors as well. Don't be afraid to make money doing this work. And as the money starts to roll in, knowing how that money is going to be distributed, what it's going to, if there is a charitable connection or a special beer that comes online in an exclusive way, we all know people can really get behind that type of stuff. And so, getting loud with that activity is great. Thinking about the way that you're promoting it, speaking to the choir, I think, with this, but having a website, ticket sales that lead to registration that accesses the information required to be in participation, sharing this loudly both before, getting blowing up the internet during, and then knowing that the bow's not wrapped until the event is over and you've really highlighted the experience to lead the way into the future. And the exclusive swag stuff, I would always have fun with thinking about ways of distributing that to ticket holders, knowing that it's also a serious revenue channel. I know Jay has built a substantial revenue channel just through ticket sales of the t-shirts. I'm sorry, of the t-shirts. So don't overlook the swag side. The marketing materials and making sure that the attendees are really informed both before the event, but also during the event, keeping folks mindful of how to be considerate when anyone can do anything from the comfort of their home. And then from kind of like the back end perspective, having your team aligned, knowing that there are settings that will make sure you can avoid some of the Zoom bombing that you may have heard about, knowing how to keep things controlled, but still open enough that it allows folks to come in and enjoy some interactivity. And then also, like I mentioned earlier, just knowing that things can happen and having some good bouncers in place who can control the room, can do things from a tech perspective to help keep things under control as you enjoy your time together. And then just thinking about, the event management 101 stuff that I mentioned earlier, like this is not done until you recap the event. And so taking screenshots and having everyone do a cheers and look into the mic and do your thing, that's a neat moment that you can share during the event, after the event, tagging photos. So it starts to showcase your vendors and connecting even individuals who are really stepping up. And when I think about like the data aspects of some of the technologies here, there's some serious, unique, I would say, opportunities to showcase some of what went down using data. That's always fun to take a peek at. And so I had to use this super cheesy graphic. I'm sorry, but if you look at this kind of example of a tasty recipe for success, imagine if you had your beers, you had a wonderful conversation on Zoom. Maybe you brought in a couple of special guests to have some on-site experiences throughout the 2, 3, 4 hour event. And you then were able to stream that out into social media and activating folks who may be able to tune in or are just watching from afar and interacting on the social media landscape. The hashtag stuff, of course, connecting all the conversations and wrapping the bow on it with a way to highlight the beers, highlight the vendors, and see all of the activity that is kind of woven into the overall event. And so that is, I would say, kind of the core of what I wanted to share today. And I hope there's a nugget in there that you can take away and enhance whatever you are already building. I know that there was some interest in specific Zoom type of conversation. I'm happy to do a screen share and show you some of this stuff, but can take some time and sometimes be a little overwhelming. So I'm happy to do that more one-on-one or if we want to a little later. But some of the high level things that I thought were pretty important is that it's not very expensive to activate a premium account that gives you the tools to control a lot of people, to customize the settings, and to give yourself a strong platform to support what could be a very large wave of participants. You end up with a business plan that's only 20 bucks a month. It's not like this big annual commitment. They actually have events that you can just, have a more of a one-time thing. So there's not a strong cost associated with building a platform like this for people to come together. At that level, you have 300 participants, but there is small add-ons. I think it bumps up to like maybe 60 and 100 bucks a month if you want to allow for 500, even 1,000 attendees. If you start getting these crazy numbers, one thing Jay and I were talking about is potentially, having these drop-off spots in regions of our state, knowing that they're also then going to be in their own room, and that only kind of creates, more opportunities for people to connect, more vendors to connect more locally, while still keeping everyone together in the same experience. One of the primary differences is the meeting versus the webinar format in Zoom. It's very simple though. Meetings are what we're doing. It's many to many. Everyone can communicate. Everyone can kind of do what they do, while webinars is one to many. So if you wanted to have a few people and not much interaction from a community, that's a good way of seriously locking it down, but limiting the interactivity of the participants. The nice part about it is you can access the experience from any device. So I could jump on my phone and add myself into this room and walk upstairs and stay connected. Being able to custom brand this thing with your own URL, even some logo stuff within the call is a nice piece of the puzzle. Knowing that the promotional value of a short URL that highlights your organization adds some brand value there. The endless settings, tons of tools that you can kind of activate, deactivate. It will create some good understandings about how to use this tool, knowing that once it's launched, you have all sorts of fun ways for participants to interact. And as we're doing today, being able to record to the cloud gives you a nice way to recap or share it if you want. But I think in this specific regard, it's also an extra layer of security. I think people that know they're being recorded and have potentially registered to connect themselves reduces some of the anonymity that might cause problems. And so having the thing recorded might be another security measure to consider. And then we talked about it earlier, but throwing this all out into the social media landscape, knowing that once it's connected, all it is activating it from within Zoom and then being able to stream both to Facebook and YouTube, which is just yet another way to create awareness and interactivity on those fronts. So that's the Zoom stuff. I see the chat lighting up. I'll take a peek at, why don't I come to those after I'm done here, because this is the last slide. So that's a little bit about Zoom. Like I said, we can screen share and actually dive into the settings if anyone is interested in taking a peek at that. I had to give a shout out to my friend, Mr. Jay. We've had such a good time collaborating over the years, and I figured it would be a good shout out to him with that photo there. But a couple last drops here just to kind of finish with a few final thoughts. This is my last slide, and one of the things that might be fun to activate is allowing that curbside pickup thing that so many people have been, I'd say, almost perfecting at this point. Being able to, I mean, what if all the vendors had specific beers they were going to serve, and they would be available on curbside. Now, I realize that the person on this side of the state might not be able to go pick something up across the state, but they're now kind of showcasing those beers and encouraging folks to come buy some brews, maybe pick up a swag bag while they're at it, and still keeping the social distancing stuff in place, but while also activating some sales for the vendors, and kind of a cool takeaway that allows folks to remember this unique and special time. I would also say that this is a chance to keep the sponsorships flowing, whether it's sponsoring the app or sponsoring a room or sponsoring a talk or having opportunities just to be involved and to support some folks who need it. I know the Iowa event had all sorts of fun sponsors who I think, proactively wanted to get involved without much asking for them at all. So keeping that in mind. I mentioned it earlier, but I do think that if there's an interactive room and I can only see it on Facebook, I would like to be in that room. And maybe I'm willing to throw a $10 ticket down in order to get the link and participate, even if the event is already underway. And I think that can really drive some real-time revenue. Zoom bombing I mentioned as well. This, for those who might not be familiar, are people who are scraping URLs, coming in and being ultra distractive. And that can be verbally, that can be visually. And it's important to, like I said, balance how hard it is to get into the room with being able to still promote it publicly. And I think that the best kind of formula is doing that, but then also knowing how to control it if it happens. And so coaching your moderators on some tactics, on ways of booting people, or having everyone arrive muted as a default, knowing how to control the room is an important piece to avoid those type of distractions. The hashtag game, we all know about the value of aligning activity on that front. One of my favorite tools of Zoom is polls. So you need to set them up before you launch the meeting or the webinar. But this is a chance to create interactivity and spawn some conversation while generating data from everyone who participates. And so maybe it's, I don't know, what was the last beer festival you attended, right? And you list your core events and seeing how many people in the virtual environment are participating in this world. Maybe you have a vendor and they have some specific things that they're looking to learn. Maybe you ask that question and allow people to, with a couple clicks of a button, participate in that polling experience. Polls are hyper valuable and can align some serious data for you with the added benefit of interactivity. Organizing groups, knowing that you can parlay that value into future activities, and not being afraid to have fun, right? I mean, that's what we, I think, do best as a group. And having some giveaways. Hey, first person to take a screenshot, drop it on this hashtag over on Twitter is going to take home this special glass, or whatever it might be, to have some fun interactive giveaways before, during, and potentially even after the event is only going to snowball, I think, the excitement that you can generate with this. And so that's really I guess the short commentary I thought I'd share. And I think we all understand the value of building now. And I just want to offer kind of my ongoing willingness to help this group. We've really enjoyed collaborating with the Iowa Brewers Guild. And I want to extend that invitation to anyone who might want to do that on any front.